What's good, folks? You know what this is, you know what to do. So we're gonna get right to it. Um, Today's session is gonna be about some of this legislation that's been passed that I want to call your attention on. You know, this legislation really invokes in a police state. You know, a police state which we already been experiencing to live in pretty much. You know, my whole life and before. But this new these new the legislation really puts the gas pedal on tyranny, puts the gas pedal on ushering it in, because that's really the mojo. Or that's really the the goal of those who want to you know strip away all of our rights and have us live in tyranny. So I want to call your attention to a new bill that I don't think too many people heard about, and it's called the Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century Act. It's also known as the Senate Bill 1813. What this bill do is pretty much give the government, you know, um, the government the authority to put black boxes in any vehicle, that's made after 2015. So, for those of you buying new cars or whatever in a few years, it's going to be mandated that you have a black box to monitor everything you do, your driving habits, whether you speed, stop at a stop sign, how fast you drive, and, more importantly, where you go. This black box is going to have the ability to monitor all of that. And, they say it's in the name of safety, but, these are automobile accidents, that they're trying to shave down on. It's about 33,000 automobile accidents that happen, annually. And they're trying to carve down on that. Now, I can understand, coming up, I can understand wanting to come up with measures that would cut back on the fatalities and automobile accidents. You know what I'm saying? But it should be done. It should be done through education and awareness. Just more education and training. Um, putting a black box in everyone's car, is not going to do it. All it's going to do is, the undercover motive, for this new bill, which by the way has passed in the Senate already. It's moving to the House for a vote. You know, but the ultimate, goal for this bill is just another revenue hunt. Just another way for the government and the big insurance companies to extract revenue out of, what I'm saying, the already the struggling population of citizens here in this country. And I also want to give you an update on CISPA. That's the new internet privacy bill. That's pretty much going to force a lot of these force all the big internet companies to share your information with the government. And so you're no longer going to have any privacy online. Your Fourth Amendment, doesn't apply if you're surfing through the web. And this bill has already passed through the Senate. You pretty much got these Republicans and Democrats that's in office, that's in Capitol Hill, that's pretty much just deciding to vote away your constitutional rights. You know what I'm saying? Piece by piece, legislation by legislation. You got the Patriot Act, what I'm saying, that's pretty much give the FBI the authority to come arrest you with no trial. Just on the pretense that you're a terrorist. And pretty much, what a terrorist is boils down to is anyone who opposes the federal government. Because this war on terror is a smokescreen. It's really a war on us. And I'm gonna share a thought with you. One potential that will always be realized is the potential for abuse of power. So if you got the potential there for abuse of power, it's pretty much gonna always be an abuse of power. You know, that's one potential that doesn't go unnoticed. And you know, you have the Patriot Act. You know, it's pretty much get a TSA or free reign to do whatever. You know what I'm saying? And they searches at the airports. And what they're doing is just molesting everybody, you know, with the groping, you know what I'm saying, the uncomfortable patting down and the radiation body scans, you know, and and these guys just gets away with it. I mean, it's legal for them to do it. You know, it's legal for them to grope your children and touch your children in areas, you know, that's private. You know, whereas anybody else end up doing time in prison and deemed a child molester for the rest of their life. You know, they would have to register as one. You know, but the TSA gets away with it. You know, and tyranny is defined as you have any form of society, you know, where actions is illegal for the citizens but legal for the government. That's tyranny. You know, and now you have the National Defense Authorization Act, which just gave the president power and the authority to legally assassinate American citizens on American ground and indefinitely detain American citizens without a trial, you know, pretty much without due process, without a trial, without a right to an attorney, you know, no nothing. And it's just crazy. And again, this new CISPA bill is already passed through the Senate. And what this bill do is just pretty much eradicate your Fourth Amendment online. You know, you go online, you try to surf, and you won't have any privacy no more. You know, you always got to worry about what the government is monitoring you for, because pretty much that's what it's gonna be. And you know, we just got to come together like we did on a SOPA and the Piper bills. You know, that was pretty much defeated. You know, that's because all of us came together. We spoke up. We sent letters. We sent emails. You know, to our elected officials. We voiced our concerns, and you know, they retreated. You know, we pretty much knew they was gonna come with another bill. You know what I'm saying? That pretty much it pretty much reaches the same goal. Just take different steps, and that's what this CISPA bill is. So you know, and I want to give a shout out to Rhett Nelson and April Bush. You know, and Romney supporters. You know, and you know these bills I just talk about. These bills I just discussed. You know, is you know part of the reasons why I can't really support Romney as a the choice, you know, for president of the United States, because I don't believe Romney will do anything to change all this legislation that's being passed. You know what I'm saying? That we repeal all these unconstitutional laws, such as the Patriot Act. You know what I'm saying? And, Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act. You know what I'm saying? The section that basically legalized indefinite detention of us American citizens without due process. You know, and Romney openly admitted, you know what I'm saying, that he would support the NWA, the NDAA, and if he was president, he would have signed it into law just like Obama did, you know, on New Year's Eve, by the way, whilst everybody was celebrating, getting drunk or whatever, you know, another law get passed and signed, I mean, another bill gets signed into law that pretty much strips more of our constitutional rights away and just get a president, you know what I'm saying, unprecedented power, a power that no other president has had before in the history of a president in the United States of America. You know, Obama signed into law. Romney said he wouldn't sign into law, Romney will do nothing to repeal these laws. That's why I cannot support him. Romney thinks Ben Bernanke over at the Federal Reserve is doing a good job, so he doesn't want to audit the Fed. That's another reason why I can't support Romney. Remember what I told you. The potential for the abuse of power is there. It's going to be realized. You know what I'm saying? You got the Federal Reserve just printing money out of thin air. You know what I'm saying? And have the whole country's finances. You know what I'm saying? At their fingertips or whatever. That's a potential for abuse of power. A huge potential for abuse of power. You got the NDAA into law. That's a potential for an abuse of power. Of course, Obama said he wouldn't necessarily use that law against American citizens. You know, but what if Romney in the office decide he go use it against American citizens? What if the next president after that decide he go use it against more American citizens? You see where I'm going with this? You know what I'm saying? The potential is there. Now Ron Paul, on the other hand, wants to remove the potential. You feel me? Wants to remove the potential for the abuse of power, you know, by repealing these laws such as the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully stop these insane bills like this moving ahead for progress in the 21st Century Act. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty much just get the government, you know, control over all your vehicles. They'll no longer be yours. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, in that new technology, you know what I'm saying, the government don't want you to drive. And they got these black boxes in all these vehicles. All they got to do is flip a switch, and you ain't going nowhere, right? You know, that, I mean, that's dictatorship. You know what I'm saying? If you guys cannot see us slipping into tyranny, you know, with all this dictatorship style legislation that's being passed, and I don't know what to say for you. You know, I really don't know what to say for you. And that's it. This session over with.